American Hammers TV. This is our part 2 of a Manic Monday. We scheduled 2 episodes today, which you don't generally do. But what we want to do is, for the American soccer fans, start promoting people who have one way, shape, or form been involved in helping promote West Ham out in England. So, because our mission here is we're here to showcase the American supporters groups. So we do 2 episodes a week, doing that. And then also we're going to eventually start just interviewing American West Ham fans here and also American West Ham fans abroad to kind of grow the fan base over here in the States, which is much better than, seeing all these red shirts and blue shirts and Totten shit shirts and all that other good stuff. So that said, our guest today is Holly Worthington. Hi, Holly.
Hiya, thanks for having me on.
And just so you know, in the spirit of The Dirt being aired on Netflix, we have a motley crew here today. So we have Wayne from the Dallas Hammers, and he's been on with us before a couple times, and Lee as always, and I'm Tim, and here we go. Lee,
yeah, no, I'll start.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Don't let me start because I'll never stop. You know that.
Wayne is from Dallas Hammers. I'm just from Dallas, although not anymore, but a long time ago. So Holly, I've been watching some of your videos, looking at some of your stuff, and so what I'm curious about is, I know you have experience with several different clubs. I know you did some commentary, I think, for Watford Ladies and some other clubs, but you seem like a West Ham fan. You seem to be pretty, you've got the shirt and you do West Ham TV and so forth. So are you like East London, Essex native, or how'd you get into West Ham?
So ironically, I was born and raised in Watford, still live in Watford. As a youngster, started playing football and began playing for Watford, went to Watford games. I can't remember how old I was probably around like 12, went to a West Ham game. And I don't know what it was, but it was just the atmosphere, the whole thing, everyone singing jokey songs. It was completely different to anything that I'd ever actually experienced. And something in that moment made me just think, I want to support West Ham. And since then, it's been a slippery slope where I can't stop. And yeah, this is me now. So I'm a fully dedicated West Ham fan and wouldn't have it any other way now.
It only gets worse, as you know. It never gets any better. So how did you? So what are you doing for the club at the moment? You're doing West Ham TV. You're doing some stuff for the West Ham Way. What's on your resume right now?
Yes, I'm doing stuff with West Ham Way, and at the moment I'm actually in the process of moving towards doing a lot more content for the women's side.
Yes.
So I've been doing bits and pieces with the men's side, but obviously with the Women's Super League, that's also getting a lot bigger and more popular. So I'm slightly being moved over towards that side, doing kind of in-stadium stuff, but I'm still doing post sort of match interviews outside the stadiums, doing a bit of everything. And to be fair, the more content I can create, the better, because it's what I love talking about and what I love doing. So the more, the better at the moment. But it's the right mixture of everything with the men's, the women's, and anything West Ham I can find.
Well, you've got to be really excited then, Holly, about the FA Cup that the women are making it through to, haven't you?
Oh, I'm over the moon, and especially because they made so many new signings at the start of the season, and women's football's always been something that people speak about, but never in the same kind of light as men's football. And as much as I'd love to say it's equal, having played it my whole life and followed it my whole life, it never quite has been. So it's great that there's a lot more male supporters, I've noticed, that are actually following it and taking it a lot more seriously. And things with like the FA Cup, with us doing so well, I think it's fantastic to see progress in the women's side as well as the men's side.
No, it's actually, it's kind of tough to follow it because, I mean, especially over here in the States, there's like a few of us who are diehards have been trying to follow it via the online streams.
Yeah.
Could you name a couple of players that are like really good for us to look out for, to watch on the pitch?
To be fair, I'd say Gilly Flaherty, the captain, is absolutely fantastic. The whole team is really, really exciting, but she's the one that I'd say is one to really look out for. There've been a few with injuries and yeah, there's just so many exciting players to look out for. And women's football as a whole, the players are moving around reasonably quickly. So I would be interested to see next transfer window what happens and how many players are still around, because we took loads from Chelsea and there's so many things going on like that. So it'd be yeah, there's so many to look out for at the moment.
Well, we're huge proponents of the women's team, and it's fun to follow them now. And not just that, we've reached out to the American girls on the team as well, and they all said that they would definitely join the show with us, like Brooke Hendricks and the other two girls. I mean, they said they would be more than happy to do it. It's just they got the, they're just like the big boys now. We have to go through their media coordinator to get them on the show.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's all become so much more professional, because from seeing behind the scenes, when I was playing with Watford Ladies around 6 years ago, there was absolutely nothing. There were no links at all between the men's and the women's side. You'd have no chance of getting any access to the stadium, the filming teams, anything like that. So to now see how much it has changed for people, like you said, with Hendricks and all the players being treated and paid fairly as well now. Obviously not as fairly as the men, but to be able to do it full time is a huge step in the right direction. But yeah, it's becoming so much bigger. I'm so excited to see what happens over the next couple of years. So I think it's going to be a massive turning point.
Have you seen a stepping up of fan support at the games? I mean, my understanding is they get a couple thousand people, which is really pretty good. We're still a women's league here in the U.S. We had a franchise here in Boston. I used to go to the games. I used to actually write about the games for a website like 10 years ago. And they would get like 5,000 to 6,000 people per game. It was really a pretty good crowd. The problem was the league was poorly run, but that's another story. So I'm just curious if you've seen a step up since we've moved into the Women's Super League and we've kind of invested in the club. Are there more fans coming and more people talking about it, more people showing up?
Yeah, so there's definitely larger crowds. It's still not always sellouts, as you would hope. There's a lot more families, I'd say. There's a lot more dads bringing their kids along, mums bringing their kids along. It does seem to be a bit more family orientated than the men's game is at the moment. But yeah, so there are still really good turnouts, and on social media especially, there's a lot of people that are now getting behind the team, which is exciting to see. Because it wasn't something that was always spoken about. It wasn't something that you could just Google and find information about, even with Women's Super League teams. So I think the funding and the whole hype around it, as well as obviously tapping into the massive fan base of the men's teams, it's great that they've been able to join in some ways and start getting the publicity that you need to sort of really get it up off its feet and get big crowds at stadiums.
I mean, they're even a step ahead of like, the lads like under 17 teams. I mean, I've had Billy from the under 17 squad reach out to me because they're going to be playing in the Generation Adidas Cup here in Dallas. And I said to him, Billy, I said, do you have like a Twitter account or something that we can follow you on? And he's like, no, we don't have one yet. But the women have actually, you can follow the women's team on social media quite avidly, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. And also they're all international players as well now and things like that. So you're getting people from all over the world following. And yeah, media-wise, there's everything you could wish for. So it's going really well.
So Erin Simon and Bree Vasali were the other two girls. I couldn't think the names off the top of my head. They said they would be more than happy to come on sometime. But, damn media coordinator. It's a damn media coordinator, man.
Are they from Texas?
There's a couple of Texas girls in the squad because I know that we had. I'm terrible with names. That's what happens when you hit your 50s. You forget names all the time. But there's a couple of Texas girls because one of them went to Frisco High School just down the street from me. And let's try. All my lads were like, let's try and get her in the pub. I'm like, she's a 17-year-old. We can't get her in the pub. If it was England, we'd be like, yeah, let's get her in the pub. But this is America. We can't get her in the pub. Yeah,
it doesn't. It doesn't really work that way here. No, it doesn't. That's funny. Yeah, no, it's. Can you tell us now? I know that the women are going back to league play here. I guess this weekend. But I know the next opponent in the FA Cup competition is Reading, and my understanding is they're pretty good. What do you know about Reading's women's team?
So I don't know as much as I'd like to, but they are a strong team. So it is going to be a massive challenge for West Ham. I'd like to think anything's doable. They are difficult though, so I think it's going to be a proper challenge. But then again, we've seen West Ham pull off some incredible performances and coming together as such a relatively new team being pieced together. I think they can definitely do it. Now everyone's working well together and we've made it this far. I don't see any reason we can't beat Reading.
And it's a David Sullivan's son who runs. He's not the manager, but he runs the women's club. Is that right?
Yeah, so he has a huge part in it, and he kind of, behind the scenes, kind of runs everything. Plays a large part in the day-to-day sort of running and the big business moves. And yeah, it's been great as well because I think it's helped to get a lot more funding in, and again has brought the publicity that has taken a lot of fans away from just being fans of the men's game. So yeah, he does have a full-on hands-on role within the team, and that's great to see as well.
And there's is there a documentary about him that I don't think I've seen? But it's like
Britain's youngest football boss. I think
yeah. Is it that? Can we get that here? I don't even know. I haven't checked. I should look.
We can get little clips on YouTube, but not the full episodes.
Not the full episodes. Okay. Is it on? Is that a BBC thing or is that online?
Yeah, it was on BBC, wasn't it? It's worth a watch.
Yeah, we'll get it like 4 years from now when it comes on Netflix or BBC America. BBC America shows nothing but Star Trek now for some reason, so we'll never get it. But we'll get it eventually. So I mean, he got a lot of criticism when he was younger. He was like 16 years old. He would tweet a lot, and it didn't always look great for the club. Has he been sort of better in this role? I mean, he seems to be much more professional and kind of with it where he is now.
Yeah, I'd say he's doing fantastic. I mean, with anyone of that kind of age on social media, everyone shares their thoughts and their opinions. And obviously, he's always been in the firing line for any criticism. Whatever he says, there's always going to be someone that will disagree with it. Whether it's rightly or wrongly, he did share opinions on certain aspects of business. I know it was controversial, but I think he's doing fantastically. He's kind of stayed away from any controversial subjects. He's just working really hard day in, day out behind the scenes. So no complaints from me.
Go ahead.
Dan, did he have as many social media followers as you, Holly? I know you've got like about 19,000 Twitter followers. I mean, is he as social media as you?
I think he's got a few more than me.
By the way, we would like to invite all of Holly's Twitter followers to check out our channel, American Ever.
Check it out. I'll post about it straight after as well.
maybe subscribe to us, and so we can upgrade our studio. I got the flag. I'm in my attic. I got the flag behind me. Good to get. So one thing I'm curious about the women's team too is I feel as though every time I look at their social media, we're bringing in a new player, like international players, good players. Relative to the other clubs in the Super League, where do you think our investment is? Is it fairly high, or is it kind of mid-table, or are we really going for it?
At the start of the season, my initial opinion was we've really gone for it. We brought in the best players from the best teams that have done really well. So in my opinion, I think we've done incredibly investing in players that in the long term are going to help the club. In terms of money, I'm not actually sure how much we've spent compared to others, but in terms of the players that we've brought in, I'd say I'm really happy, and I think we're above average in who we've brought in to actually strengthen the squad, especially being new in the league. It's so important to obviously do that. So yeah, I think we've gone flying in there to do it.
And even following the girls themselves on their personal social media accounts, looks like they all get along with each other too.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, even to work with and to interview, they're just an absolute pleasure. And also they're so easy to work with and so keen to get content out there and promote the women's game and promote what they're doing. That it's a great project to get involved with, and it's really fun to just be a part of. So I feel really lucky that I'm getting the chance to.
Clearly, none of them are managed by Marko Arnautovic's brother. Then,
good segue.
I am curious about one other thing. So, are they able to sort of be full-time professional footballers? I mean, I know here in the U.S., I know the mother of a professional footballer, a player here in the U.S., professional women's player, and I know the player makes like $25,000 a year. It's not really a living wage. It's sort of, you have to do it as a side hustle, sort of. So, and have another job basically on the side. So, are they able to be like full-time professionals, most of them, or is it something that they can't?
So pretty much the first season where they've been able to rely on the income they're getting. It's probably not as much as some of them could be earning in full-time jobs elsewhere. But it's now enough that they're able to just focus on the football, which again, I think is another thing that's going to make huge investment in actually better women players throughout the UK and throughout the world, is that they're no longer having to focus on the job on the side. They can actually full-time train and work towards progressing. So yeah, there is now, with the sponsorships that have come in and the publicity and a lot of things that are bringing more money into the league, it has enabled, in the majority of cases, people to just focus solely on football. But I think it's something, there's still a long way to go, obviously, to reach anywhere near the men's standard, let alone being a great wage. But yeah, so they are now able to.
Yeah, Tim, your other favorite club, Lewis FC. The one you used to tell me about them, because all the
they have a strong women's club. Yeah.
They now, the reason I mentioned Lewis is because Tim used to run a semi-pro club here in the Boston area, and I used to help him. And Lewis FC always did this great social media where every match day they would do like a movie poster, They advertised the match, so we followed Lewis FC to try to steal ideas. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we noticed that they now pay their women the same as the men, which obviously they can do. They're, I don't know what division men play in, but it's below the top 4 leagues. But it seems like a good, somebody started doing it. It's a good precedent set anyway. I mean, it's going to have to be a lot more interest in money in women's football before you get £100 million transfers, obviously. But there's a lot more parity, I think, maybe than there was even like 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah. And I think as well, the thing is that as more people are talking about it and it is becoming more desirable, while it's such a different game to watch, I'd love to say it's exactly the same to watch, but it isn't. The pace is different, the skill is different, but not necessarily in a bad way. I think quite often there's an assumption that women's football is slower or more boring and things like that. But when you actually go to a game, you realise that's completely wrong and that there is so much to be excited about. So I think it is like obviously the precedent to pay the men the same as the women would be unbelievable to do at every team. I guess it would become more difficult where you're on kind of Premier League wages compared to others. But I'm sure there's a middle ground that can be found somewhere. And I think in the next few years, we're going to see a lot more equality in terms of wages.
I hope so. I think it's. Well, we've always said here in the U.S. that finally the U.S. Soccer Federation, whoever controls this sort of thing, is paying the women's team the same as the men's team, and I think that's following a lawsuit by the women players. But the women's team is better. They draw bigger crowds. They draw bigger TV audiences. They should be paid more.
They're bringing in the crowd.
Especially after guys lost to Trinidad and didn't qualify for the last World Cup. So, a part of it is probably just plain old like gender discrimination, but we're seeing, it's nice that here in this country we're seeing that come to parity a little bit more anyway. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, as well, like obviously I'd argue that it is gender discrimination, but at the same time, I suppose you could argue that if women's football isn't yet drawing in the same kind of crowds and not making the same money, right, I guess you can't expect the same money to be put back into them. But it's kind of catch-22 that unless you do start putting some more money into it, then it won't actually have the chance to catch up. So yeah, I really hope that in the next few years we do see some big changes.
So needless to say, that's a great thing for us. But we love watching this and we love talking about it every episode. But what do you think about the men's season thus far?
I'm quite positive, actually. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs. I'm really excited with Pellegrini and how his style of play seems to actually be playing out now. It's just stressful every single week, whether you never know whether you're going to lose to Fulham or win to Man City or what's going on. But I'm quite happy with where we are. I mean, we're 9th in the table. We're a win away from 7th. If someone had said that to me at the start of the season, I'd have been very happy.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I feel the same way. I think we're headed in the right direction. I mean, you know how it is with West Ham, and I don't know whether other clubs are like this or not, but we win, and the Huddersfield match is a little different because that was a pretty poor performance. We kind of stole at the end, but generally speaking, we win, and we're clearly going to be in Europe next season. We lose, and we're clearly going to be relegated next season. There's never a middle ground of anybody saying like, "Well, we're fine, we're okay, we're getting better." It's always either glory or total doom, But I feel as though I think we're moving in the right direction. I have faith in Pellegrini as a manager. I think if we hadn't had so many injuries this season, we would maybe be a legitimate top 6 contender. The only thing I can't figure out, and I don't know, Holly, what you think. There's 2 things that I can't figure out. One, we're horribly inconsistent. We put up great performances against Liverpool and Manchester City and Arsenal and Manchester United. And we go out and lose to Bournemouth and Cardiff, and we look terrible. 2, I don't know why we can't play the first 10 to 15 minutes of a match.
We do take a while to get into it, don't we?
I don't know if you have any thoughts on either of those things.
Well, it's so difficult. I mean, we held our own against Man City with a 1-0 loss. I'd have taken that.
Bogus penalty too. It was a bogus penalty. And I'll say it again. That was the Premier League trying to get the title race restarted. That penalty came from the Premier League.
Yeah. And then before you know it, we're losing to Cardiff and then having a last-minute comeback against Huddersfield. And it is something that I find really frustrating. Like you said, there's no we always struggle with consistency, and I can never quite put my finger on why. And like you said, the first 15 minutes of a match, that's when you need to put your mark on a match, scare the other team. And it does seem that we concede early or we start on the back foot, which is something that's really frustrating because we have the players to do it. We've proven that we can do it. But it does seem that we always just turn up that bit more against the top 6 clubs. And if we could do that, we could turn over any club in the Premier League. So it is a shame that it does seem to take us so long to get into matches. I'm hoping that we can change it for the last few games of the season now.
Now, Wayne has a theory on our inconsistency, right, Wayne?
Well, my theory is we've always been that way. I've supported the team since I was 7 years of age, and I see no difference from year to year. It's like when I sit down with all of the American hammers that we brought in the Dallas area, it's like they're like, oh gosh, yeah, we're gonna do well, and I'm like, there's always this feeling within me that I'm like, yeah, I know we're gonna do well, but I know we're not. It's just the way that it is. It really is the way. It is the West Ham way, but there's not an awful lot you can do about it. What I can't stand is the people whining about it all the time. It's, we don't support West Ham because we're glory hunters, do we? I mean, you obviously don't support you're a glory hunter, right? I mean, come on, you're on this show with us. Come on, we support West Ham because it's a feeling. It's an overall feeling. It's a feeling of being part of something that's special. It's a tradition. And that to me is everything. I mean, is it to you? Is it a feeling? Is West Ham a feeling to you?
Oh, 1,000,000%. I mean, I spent my whole week looking at updates and what's going on and looking forward to the game. And I know we're not the best team. I know that we probably will lose at the weekend, but I'm still counting down the days until that game. I go through the same emotional roller coaster as everyone, where you're happy when we've scored and then we'll concede 3 and then we'll score another 4 and you don't know what's going on. But yeah, for me, it's so much more than just a club. And I was saying to people at my work the other day, I can't imagine supporting a club like Man City where you just expect a consistent performance. And I wouldn't want to either, because I kind of like the fear and the excitement and everything that comes with West Ham. So it is a complete feeling. And it's like you said, it's a group of people, and it does feel like a family that we know we're not the best and we never will be the best. But we do fight and we do well, and sometimes we fall apart, and it's always been that way as long as I can remember as well. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And obviously we're not going to be glory hunters at West Ham United, but I wouldn't have it any other way myself.
Now, when you look at the squad right now that we've got, and you look at that set of players, who would you say is given the most to the team this year? I mean, and not necessarily like skills wise, but who do you think overall gives the most of the team?
It's a bit of a difficult one because, for example, Hernandez, I was really excited when we signed him and then was worried because he seemed to be, I don't know what it was, whether it was that I was used to Arnautovic being a brute kind of up front, and then he was kind of getting pushed off the ball. I think he's done really well. But Antonio, I don't know what it is, but his performances, he's one of those that gets a lot of controversial comments around him. Some think he's great, some think he's terrible. Sometimes he's trying to run through players, but he just runs and he just tries. And I think that's what I really love. And I could say it about so many players. You've got Snodgrass who's chasing the ball down continuously. You've got so many, but I think Fabianski for me has been unbelievable. Great signing, somebody that I wasn't blown away with when we signed him, but he's just been unbelievable, hasn't he?
Tim, there's another one. We discuss this every episode. Tim is not a fan of Fabianski, but I'm a fan of him.
What do you like about Fabianski?
We have a little controversy. It's about as controversial as we get.
All right, to my credit, I don't think I've ever been a fan of any goalkeeper ever in the history of goalkeepers, because their job is to stop goals, not concede. I mean, yeah, he leads the league in saves, but he also is right up there in goals against. And his job is not to let that happen. So anyway, it's not just him. It's all goalkeepers. They all suck.
All of them.
Seriously, I hate them all.
No, I have to give you a hard time.
Oh, sorry.
No, I have to give him a hard time about that. That's all. So you are doing West Ham TV, which is for the club, right?
Yeah, so I've been doing West Ham TV, which is kind of any presenting that they ask me to do for the men's team, the club.
So you work for that's like you're getting a paycheck from the club, basically.
Essentially, yeah, but it's not my full-time job, so I do it in bits and pieces when they need me. I'd love to do it full-time, but unfortunately, it's not something that's a full-time job at the moment.
Understood. Well, that's like what we do here, except we don't get paid at all. So,
but you get free coffee.
Tim gets a cup of coffee.
That's Strava coffee from Colorado, because we need to plug our coffee. There you go, Strava Craft coffee. So I'm just curious, are you meeting the players? Do you have do you know them at all? Do you get to talk to them?
Yeah, so I have met the players. I haven't done anything with the men's team in a little while. But yeah, I've been doing content with the guys, and they're a really good bunch of people. I haven't had the chance to work with all of the team. But people like Antonio are particularly easy to work with, and yeah, so I've had the opportunity to make content with them.
I was just wondering if you had any favorites. You don't have to tell us about your least favorites unless you want to. But I was wondering if you had any favorite favorites.
I think Antonio. Really
Antonio.
Yeah.
I'm getting a hint.
Yeah, Antonio's been really chatty. He's really easy to work with as well. It doesn't feel like you need to be careful what you're saying around him. So I can't really say who my least favourites are. Obviously, I love them all, but Antonio's got to be my favourite.
Nice try.
It's charismatic. That's really good. Yeah. That's good. So how how about the how about the board? How about the two Daves and Karen Brady? What's your relationship with them been like?
So I met Karen Brady. I haven't met the two Daves. I've met Dave Jr. But yeah, they all seem absolutely fine. I mean, I haven't had enough time with them to obviously have a proper chat with them or know anything about them. You get the feeling that they kind of run stuff above, and then the team, I guess, run the day-to-day runnings of the business. But yeah, I haven't had as much sort of hands-on contact with them all as I would have liked to at the moment. But yeah, they all seem absolutely fine from what I know. I don't know enough to say otherwise.
That's fair. No, totally fair.
Who do you work with directly there then? And who do you have any shout outs you want to mention of people that we wouldn't even hear of that actually work for the club that you work with?
They've got their own media team, and it's the same team that do the pitch side stuff. So they've got a camera crew that are really cool, and they basically go around doing all the content. And then they've got specific people that deal more with the women's side, but then, well, most of the time deal with stuff on the women's side, but then do stuff with the men's team. So it's a big crossover, and it's quite cool as well because the staff do come between London Stadium and Rush Green, and it makes for quite a nice atmosphere because everyone sort of knows everyone. So it's really nice, actually.
Did you put in a word for us? Would you mind?
Of course, thank you.
No, because we don't. I mean, the thing is, we really want to expand the West Ham fan base in the U.S. We want to bring West Ham fans together with the U.S. We're really trying to do something that's good and positive, and the last thing we want to do is, honestly, be controversial. I mean, we have opinions, but we want this to be something that brings people together.
Don't watch the first 4 episodes if you're any of the Davids.
Don't watch the one with the guy from was it from DC? Tim, was it cost?
I think it was DC.
Cost you went off a little bit. Maybe just skip that one. But no, the more access we can have to the club, the better, because we'd love to have more people like you on, and we'd love to have more people involved with the club and women's players and former players. So yeah, anybody who can hook us up. We're not very hooked up in England. We're just a couple of guys in the Boston area and Wayne.
Yeah, don't forget me. Come on.
No. Wait.
There's groups in the United States here.
But this is the best part of it, though, is that we wouldn't have met Wayne if it wasn't for this show. You know, I mean, there's supporters groups all over the place, and in this country, and we've met some really awesome people. And that, Lee's talked about this in previous episodes, that West Ham fans are some of the coolest characters that you've ever met. And we've met a lot of awesome people through this medium, and we're meeting awesome people from abroad. For us anyway, it's really cool. And we're introducing you guys to other American West Ham fans. But earlier today, we had on Mike Manera from Hammers Chat. He does Mike on Mondays, and Hammers Chat's one of the biggest fan based West Ham channels out there, and I would like to have the West Ham fan TV guys on at some point. We've talked to them quite a bit, and just try to introduce everybody from abroad over here, and vice versa. We want a good working relationship with everybody.
I love that everyone gets so involved as well with each other's channels. I know that with a lot of other clubs, it's kind of you want to get your own fan base and you don't want others to interact. I think it's great as well that, like you said, it is a big family where everyone's getting involved and just getting content out. And it's amazing how many fans you do see from all over the world, whether it's at games, online, on social media, everyone just getting together and chatting about the thing that they love. So yeah, no, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's been fun for us, and we've discussed, as Tim said, we've met a lot of people and discovered a lot of people here in the U.S. And I always, every time we do one of these shows, I always say it takes a certain type of person to support West Ham, especially somebody who's not, from Essex or East London or Canning Town or wherever. But people like us who the club chooses us. Obviously we don't choose the club chooses us. Because no sane person would make the decision to be obsessed with West Ham if we didn't have to be. But I feel as though you're going to meet better people as West Ham fans. You don't get glory hunters. You don't get bandwagon people. You don't get people who are going to come and go. Once you're in, and you're sort of in for life, and it's it becomes an obsession. But you get around people who are like you, and we've just met a lot of great people that way. It's one of the reasons I started supporting West Ham was I just like West Ham fans better than any other fans.
We usually ask all of our guests as well, how they got started and how they became a West Ham fan, and we love hearing those stories. Whether they're like Wayne from England, and then I think there was the guy from Vegas as well. He's from England as well, and
he's from Kennington. He's legit. Yeah.
And then you have Wayne's not legit.
No, Wayne's legit. No. I mean legit English, not. I mean legitimately English.
Yeah. No, but my point is that we've also heard.
It doesn't really matter to us. Travel the district line to Upton Park every bloody week. That's legit.
No. I mean legit.
We've also heard. Hold on.
Not from Midlothian, Texas. In other words.
We've also heard, people like newer generation people saying that they started following West Ham because of Green Street Hooligans, the movie. Now, what I'm waiting for is the first person to tell us that they were introduced to the to West Ham on The Simpsons.
Yes, that's right.
Now that'll be a new one. But no, I mean I've heard everything so far, and I love hearing those different stories, and I love meeting these new people, and it's really cool. And I'm going to be visiting Wayne in Dallas, from Boston to Dallas, for the Manchester United match.
Ooh.
That's the week I'm visiting London. So, just kidding.
Holly, you've been over here, right? You've been to the US.
Yes, I went traveling, and I've got family that live over in Sonoma. But we went to New York and then Chicago and did all of Route 66.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was amazing, absolutely incredible. I want to go back so badly as well.
Well, you've been to a lot of places I've never been. Then, if you've done all of Route 66, and Sonoma is, I guess it's okay if that's where you have to have family. I don't know. It's no Gary, Indiana, but I guess you take what you can get,
Exactly.
Well, he must like a glass of wine then.
Do you know what? I don't. I'm an outcast. That's why they sent me over to England.
Are you more into the lager?
The lager, yeah. I'm a bit of a kind of beer girl, bit of a failure.
No, I don't. I think that's actually. I think that's actually a positive. And you were on one of the ninja shows or something, right?
Oh yeah, so Ninja Warrior.
Was that here or was that in the UK?
Yeah, the UK. So I went on the first season of the UK version of it. So that was a good laugh. I didn't get very far. I got through all the sort of the first heats, and then the main one that they then televised. It was so awkward because they did a whole build up where they did an entire I used to be a nanny back in the day when I did this. Followed me around for about 2 days, filming me, doing training, massive build up, and then I get to the obstacles. I make it over the first steps, make it up this kind of wall thing, and then there was a door, and you had to hold on to the sides of the door. And it basically slides quite fast and then drops. I was gone.
Speaking of gone, Wayne's gone.
Where'd Wayne go? Yeah, Wayne just dropped too. I don't know where he went. Maybe he'll come back in.
You didn't like that comment you made about being.
No, I said English.
I sent him another invite. He'll be back.
Compared to anybody from Midlothian, Texas, anybody from England is a lot more legit than I am. So, yeah. Even at least Tim's from New England. At least he's from
New England. Yeah.
I mean, I live here, but anyway. Well, you got on the show. That's very cool. Here's Wayne's back. My two sons, ninjas. My little boys want to be ninjas, so I'll have to tell them that you did that. They'll be very excited to hear it.
Tell them to hold on tighter than I did.
I will. They're taking karate lessons and they watch a lot of ninja stuff, so they're well into it. But so you've been over here. That's pretty cool. Now, so when you go to games, are you going for work, or you do go for fun, or what's your Saturday routine?
So it's a bit of a combination. So if I'm doing stuff with the men's team, it's a bit harder to just go for fun because you find yourself doing a lot before the game, making notes throughout the game, and then doing stuff after the game. So I wouldn't say it ruins the experience, but it definitely makes it different. And at the same time, sometimes I get sat kind of like with the director's sort of box. And that's a completely different atmosphere as well, which I'm not so used to because it's a lot more peaceful and quiet and calm, which probably helps for making notes, but not for how I like to sort of celebrate a goal.
It's a good thing David Sullivan's short because he wears that big Russian hat.
Yeah.
You'd have a hard time seeing around him otherwise, you know? So.
You'll peek around the hat.
I'm also short, so I sympathize with him, is what I'm saying.
I am as well. I'm only 5'3". It's fine. I understand. But yeah, so it's a bit of a different one. And then quite often I'll get to go to games where I don't have any work around it, which is great because I literally just get to go do my own thing. And the other thing I've noticed is that I meet so many cool West Ham fans at every single game. I've got chatting to people from all walks of life, and it's so nice that it's not weird for people to kind of just come over and have a chat. And I literally love that, and that makes the games for me. And you stand with absolute strangers and chat about your experiences, and like you were saying, how people start supporting West Ham, hearing so many incredible stories and mixing with people that you maybe wouldn't in everyday life as well. And I just love it. So,
how long a drive is it from Watford?
What did you say?
How long a drive is it from Watford?
It's about an hour's drive, or about an hour and a half on the train. I tend to get the train just because you get stuck in car parks. It's an hour's drive, but maybe 2 hours getting out of the car park. So,
an hour's drive in Texas is known as next door, as Wayne will tell you.
Seriously.
Yeah, an hour's drive in Texas. You don't even wake up. You don't even wake up till you're at least 2 hours into the drive. But how is the experience for like women at West Ham just out in the crowd? I mean, I know football, like old guys who go back to the 70s and the 80s, and maybe Wayne will corroborate with me on this. It was a very like
pick on the old
lad.
He's not legit. He's old.
Yeah,
I'm bald, I'm fat, I'm old. Yeah, all right. But everyone knows now.
Is it more? Is it like better? Is it more mixed? Is it like more comfortable now if you're like a young woman in the crowd, just among everybody?
Yeah, so even 10 years ago, it was pretty much all men. You would get funny looks every now and again. You'd get the odd comment made. There's a lot less of that nowadays. There's a lot more women as well, and a lot more people.
That's because Wayne's over here. That's why.
Yeah.
It's all my fault. I left and said, you can let the women in now. All right.
But yeah, no, it's great. Like, I have no complaints, and I don't know whether it's our fan base being lovely or whether it's football in general, but I don't feel out of place as a female at the games. The best thing about being a female at football games is that the toilets are empty. There's no queue. You never get it. It's the only place on the planet you never get a queue for the toilets. But yeah, it's great. Like, I've never had any problems as a West Ham fan at a ground, outside a ground, any of that. Everyone's just there to have a laugh, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I never had a problem with the toilets back at Upton Park. I remember once going to go to the loo, and everybody was jumping up and down doing the chitty chitty bang bang version of Bubbles.
Nice.
And I decided to get into it, and I was so into it that I just decided to go to the toilet there. So it's like toilets were never a problem. It was never a problem. I mean, and it just eventually evaporated, and it was no problem anyway. But the new ground itself, it's like, I know back at Upton Park, you knew where the areas were where you get the rowdiest bunch, and I hear a lot of my mates saying that they haven't quite figured out where the rowdy bunch sits or stands any longer at the new ground. Is there an area that's sort of known now for like where the rowdies are at, or is that still developing?
It's still developing. There is an area now where it is louder, and I think as time goes on and people start renewing season tickets and reshuffling, I think we will form more of an area where it is the kind of mad bunch. But at the moment it is quite a mixture, and it was difficult, especially when we first moved into the stadium. You'd get kind of a bunch of 3 people wanting to sing and stand up, and then a couple of people behind them that either couldn't stand up or didn't want to, or they didn't know much about West Ham. And it was so mixed that I think it did make it difficult to get the atmosphere. And especially that's one of the main things we missed from the Berlin, where everyone knew where you sit if you want the crazy experience. If you don't, you know where to go as well. And I think that was one of the main teething issues, I guess, where the atmosphere did kind of get just evaporated, really. Speaking of evaporation.
Yes. Now, is that something that the team is working towards in like trying to find those designated areas and saying, look, if you're not happy with the season tickets where you got right now, let's try and move you to this area where we've got a bunch of guys who are like-minded like you?
Yeah, so I know the club are doing a lot to try and make people happy by doing that. I think it is obviously going to have to happen over the course of time, where some people don't want to move and there aren't always spaces to put people in the rowdy bunch and things like that. But I think everything's now in place where that can happen as soon as people are ready to either move out of a certain area or move into it. So it's on its way, but I think it might still be a little while until we see the kind of the designated zones where you know what's happening. So yeah, it's happening, but slowly.
Now, you were at the last match of the bowling, right?
I didn't make it. I was literally devastated. Couldn't get a ticket. So my boyfriend went with his dad, and I basically got a live stream of the entire thing. But yeah, I couldn't make it. It's probably the worst thing. Absolutely devastated that I didn't make it.
It's funny. We were in our pub down in Dallas, and me with like 3 or 4 of my English mates, we were sitting there, and we were watching the whole thing, and it was probably, apart from being back in England, I couldn't have thought of a better place to have been than in the pub with my mates, because we were all standing there crying our eyes out because it just finally hit us that we were just never going to be there again. But my one mate turned to me. He says, if we couldn't be there, there's no better place that we could have been than just together here doing this, because we all got to experience it together and we know what it was like. Yeah. And I think that's a great thing about the supporters groups over here in the States is we really are. We've all become family, because it's been tough trying to watch games over here in the States over the past like 10, 15 years. Sometimes when you have to gather around, sometimes you have to gather around one of these, because you're watching on a satellite feed and it's raining, so you can't get it, or the satellite's going out, so you have to do something else so you can catch it on your phone. And it brings you close together. And my group, we feel more like a family than we do like a group of supporters. And it's just a great feeling and it's that feeling that we had that when we used to go down the pub where you'd hang with your mates. And it's still that feeling over here now. And I think it's great what everybody's doing, what Tim and Lee are doing, and what we're all trying to do to try and get the West Ham brand out there, and try and grow these groups over here so that people can experience the passion that is West Ham, because that is what makes this club so special. So it's just something else. But the bowling, like, oh God Almighty, I've never seen so many grown men cry in a pub over here, and even the Americans crying, because they saw us crying and they're like, well, you're making us cry now. So it's like that was just like what a day, and talk about getting plastered afterwards. Totally.
I think that's what makes it so amazing, though, that however far away you are, you still feel like a family. And even if you can't actually physically make it to the games, you still get that same experience. And that's unique. I don't think you get that anywhere outside the world of football. And to hear that there's so many different groups of fans now spread out across the planet being able to do this, it's amazing. It makes me so happy.
You should hear me on the truck. You should hear me on the truck at work when I'm listening on West Ham, their website. They have a live stream, and I listen to the audio broadcast, and I'm screaming. That Huddersfield match, I'll tell you, I thought I ended up with a migraine literally after the match, because I was just up and down, freaking out, yelling, screaming. And man, just the audio alone, I'm visualizing it, it's crazy. But and then I obviously get to watch the match thereafter when I get home. But it's difficult here. It really is. 3 or 4 years ago, NBC Sports, they did, they had this package where they showed every single match, no matter what club it was. They showed everything. They just gave us everything we could possibly imagine on every network that they own. And then all of a sudden they're like, nope, just kidding. You got to pay an extra $15 a month if you want to watch your team, which half the time it doesn't even come in.
Because we're never the featured game of the week, right? I mean, they still show games on cable
sometimes.
But it's very rarely is it West Ham, and if it is West Ham, we're playing Manchester City, Liverpool. You know how that goes. So,
on NBC Universo Deportes, when Chicharito is playing, they'll put it on that in Spanish for us. But that's about it.
I love games in Spanish, but they pulled a little bit of bait and switch on us with showing us everything and then saying, no, sorry, now you have to pay extra on top of whatever you pay for cable or streaming or whatever. So it's although we are going to be at the NBC Sports Premier League morning show on Saturday.
Yeah, we love them. They're awesome. Yeah,
we don't want to be too many. We do want them to put us on TV so we can, like, show our channel, and we're gonna be there with a bunch of West Ham supporters. So
I really got to figure out how to edit these shows. I really do.
I know. Through Saturday, we can start complaining about NBC Sports again after Saturday, but until Saturday, we love NBC Sports. So
yeah.
So where are we? So Holly, where are we most likely to see you if we want to watch you online or read stuff that you've written or whatever it is you're doing? Where are you appearing most at the moment?
On the website, on the social media sometimes. I always post links on my own social media, which is at Halsey. So that's probably the best place to locate all the different places that I end up being.
Sorry, say it again. At
Halsey, so HOLLSEEY.
Okay, because I think we're already following it, but I just want to make sure everybody got that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so is it like, is this like a steady gig that they're giving you with West Ham TV, or is it just like they call you and they're like, we need you this week, like you're a special agent or something?
It's more like that. So how it began was I saw a competition on social media that said that they were looking for presenters that were fans, and I'd previously done stuff with Watford Ladies and I'd done Matchday commentary for other teams, and thought this is the perfect opportunity to combine what I love with what I want to do. So I applied, and there were three of us, Chris, Evan and myself. I don't know if you've heard of either of them, Chris Skull and Evan Coolj.
Oh, good, Chris Skull, yeah.
Yeah, so we basically all got put head to head in these challenges where we had to answer questions and all sorts. And we originally thought it was going to be one of us getting the gig. And then what they did was they split it between the three of us. So we all do different bits and pieces of the content. So I've done sort of more to camera stuff with interviews with fans and with kind of pitch access and things like that. And then Evan does kind of the score predictions, which then go on the screen at the games. Chris does stuff with the sort of the former players and all sorts like that. So
those are cool. Yeah.
It's really cool, and it means that we get three different people's opinions on varying content. So the content that I get to do isn't as regular as I'd love to. If I could, I'd do it every single day. But yeah, so at the moment it's not as often as I'd like, but I'm hoping that it'll carry on being more often.
Excellent.
And when you see Chris next, tell him he deserves a medal for trying to get Nigel Reo-Coker to actually emote a little bit. Poor Chris, I felt for him. I was like, "There's Nigel Reo-Coker." Yeah. Yeah.
Tried.
That's real easy though with Carlton Cole when he does it with them, or he does it with Marlon Harewood or someone like that.
Yeah, they're great. They're so chatty.
Carlton Cole is
we're going to see you play your guitar on the side of the pitch.
Oh no, we found those videos.
We do our research.
We do our research. Nothing better to do.
We have to go delete them all. No, something that I've done for a little while just for fun. So never know. I might have to do an acoustic version of Bubbles.
Do you write any songs, or you just mainly do like?
I have written some, but they're not of the standard where I'd be happy to.
Listen, you
want to debut
in my room?
Debut.
In my room, I'm a rock star, but no one else is listening.
We have 183 subscribers, so you got a big audience.
Perfect. I'd hate to scare them off. No, we don't want to scare them off.
I doubt it would, but understood. Yeah, that's cool. So guitar is like a fun thing, mostly.
Oh yeah. I started doing it ages ago and love it. Just pretty much any spare time I get, I'll just end up sitting there with the guitar for fun.
So when are you coming to the US next to hang out with us at the pub and watch a match with us?
I hope soon. I'll definitely be up for that as well. The plan is I'd love to do Route 66 again, but what I realised when I was travelling the States is that every place is so different and there's so much to see, and the people were so different everywhere I went, and I absolutely loved the whole thing. So I'd like to do kind of a state-by-state trip. How I'd find time to do that, I've no idea. But yeah, I'd absolutely love to. So if you're ever around in England, likewise, give me a shout and we'll have to catch up.
Oh, absolutely. Well, if we come to England, we're going to have a big party because we're meeting a lot of West Ham people now. So yeah, it's going to be. I don't know when, because Tim and I both have young kids, and it's hard for us to go it's hard for us to drive an hour for vacation. much less get somebody on a plane, you know. So yeah, it's a bit of a chore. But
I just told my wife, if I go back to England, it's going to have to be for 3 weeks, and don't expect to hear from me.
Well, you know what, Wayne? You know what though? I probably will be in Texas at Christmas for like 2 weeks. So because that is where I'm from. So we'll catch up at the pub down there.
Come down to the pub, mate.
Yeah.
Still with your name on it.
Yeah, no, we'll do it. We'll do it. I know it's a while. It's a long way off. It's not till the end of the year, but I've got the time off work, so hopefully it's going to happen. So yeah. Tim, you're back.
Yeah, the doorbell rang. I mean, the problem with doing this in your house, you know.
Nobody ever rings my doorbell. Nobody's ever rung my doorbell that I can think of.
No, it was one of those cable TV sales people.
Oh yeah, I hate those guys. Yeah, like Comcast. Yeah. No.
I was like, "What? What do you want? I'm doing something." Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. So where were we? Yeah. So let me. One thing I wanted to find out real quick was that this whole Arnie thing. What do you think about that? I mean, you think we should let him play? Or we should just send him off to China now?
I think it's tough because, I mean, I think as soon as someone's shown that they're not 100% in the club, so many things go wrong. If their heart's not in it, I don't think you can perform the same. The fans see that you're not giving 100%, and it's so difficult to recover from. And, I mean, the performances he's had since he's been back, I don't think have been horrific. But I think everyone's looking as well for a reason to kind of blame him for everything. And I just think it's a bad situation. Once someone shows an intention to leave, it's kind of not recoverable unless he comes back, makes incredible performances and has no intention to leave and apologizes, then I don't think you can really come back fully from it. So in my eyes, I think he just needs to work out what he wants to do, because if you want to leave, it's probably best to just leave a club and go where you'd like to. I don't think there's any point in kind of, I just don't think you can give your all once you've shown that you're not fussed, basically.
I mean, is that felt around the club? I mean, do you feel it? I mean, even there, in England, I mean, do you feel that atmosphere, that dead vibe?
A lot, and I mean, I think even if he had a great performance, a lot of people still just want to hate him. So I think anything he can do now, however great a performance it may be, is never going to really work. And unless over a long, long time people sort of forget that. And I know that football fans are fickle, and if we start getting results, we're happy, and if people score, we're happy. But I don't know if you can get over certain things. And I think as well with the brother as an agent, there's so many rumours that he is the kind of person that does this at numerous clubs and things like that. You do question how long he's going to stay, regardless of whether he's at the club at the moment or not. And I'm just not sure really. What do you think?
Well, after talking with Mike earlier this morning, he made a valid point. You know, it sounds like the deal's already done, just not on paper. And he's already checked out, and Pellegrini sees that, and that's why he's not really giving him much time. And when he does give him time, you tell he just doesn't give a shit.
Part of what we talked about was, the Huddersfield, he was just kind of walking around out there.
Yeah, that's it.
He's completely disinterested for most of the second half of the season, and I don't understand why he would do that. It doesn't boost his value to go somewhere else, Unless,
like Mike said, unless the deal's already done.
Right. Like Mike thinks the deal's already done in China, and we're just going to leave him in China when we go in for the preseason. I mean, honestly, though, if he wanted to leave for another club, a bigger club, quote unquote, why would he perform this way? You would think he would want to be scoring. He'd want to be, he'd want people to look at him and say he's worth more than we realize. We have to get him in. I feel as though now, he's almost 30, I think. I think he's 29, 30 years old. I just don't see why loafing around the way he kind of has recently is going to help him. It doesn't seem to help him at all. It seems only to hurt him. So I don't get it unless it's done deal.
I think it's one of those situations where literally nobody's ended up benefiting from it. He hasn't left. The fans aren't happy. We're not getting the results for the club. His value will go down. There were all the rumours that were coming out that he was having injections in his knees every other day, which again makes his value go down. And I mean, I don't think anyone benefited from the whole situation in the transfer window at all. So whatever, I guess, the objective of it was, it hasn't come off. And it's just left everyone, I guess, in a difficult situation because we know he can perform so well. And we also know that he's always been one of those players that he does walk around with a grumpy face, and he does sometimes sort of wander around. But when he's performing, I guess you don't care. But now that's happened, it's difficult to know what to do, I suppose, because you don't want to let him go for less than he's worth as well, because we do know his value. And I've always said as well that I think the value of a player should be based on what you can replace them with. And if you can't get someone in better, is there any point in selling them for that? But that was my argument in the transfer window. But now looking at kind of, is his value going to go down? You never know. And can we bring someone in better? It depends on the attitude and the results that we're getting from him, I guess, over the last games of the season, see what happens. But it is a tricky one at the moment.
Do you think he's doing damage with the other players? I mean, do you think that? I mean, because I felt as though once he came off against Huddersfield, everything changed. Of course, Keita came on; that probably had more to do with it. But I mean, do you think there's a feeling of resentment toward him or negativity? I mean, do you sense it at all?
I think from within the club, they've done well to not really let any of that happen. But I think at the same time, it's risky territory, because even if I was at work and I could see that someone else was getting different treatment, not being fussed and still getting kind of played, of course it's going to affect morale. And I think as much as you'd like to say it won't, it always will. So I'd like to think it's not really affecting the other players, and they're kind of powering through. And it does look like everyone's pulling together as a team and actually making the results happen. Like we said, we came back from being down last game, and I think as a team we can pull together, but perhaps having negativity within the squad is an issue and does need to be addressed in the window.
I'd tell you that to me, as being a lifelong supporter, we've been burnt in the past, and most recently being burnt with Payet. I'm of the mind that's like he came off that game just after Christmas, did that goodbye everybody thing.
Yeah,
that for me was like that was the end of it. And when he came back, I was like, okay, he needs to score 3 goals this match to even like get him my good graces again.
Yeah.
And he didn't, and he's not performed. I'm like, there's a guy on Twitter called Chris Ross that does a lot of like songs on like ukulele and stuff. Yeah. And he wrote one that called a Slow Boat to China. And that's the way I feel about it. Stick him on it, let him rot on the way.
I think it's hard for footballers. It's so difficult for them to. I think sometimes footballers do get wrapped up in the world of kind of football, and they forget that it should be a pleasure to play for a club, and that to the club, to the fans, it's so much more than just a job or a place that you're playing football, or a pitch, or just a building. And I think it's so difficult for them to understand sometimes, and people do get carried away and make decisions which they forget. And that's why obviously it's never going to be the same once you've kind of said that you don't want to play for a club, because like we said, to us, this is our life, this is what we love, and this is what we do, and this is what we go so far out of our way to even follow, that it should be an honour to play for a club, not a chore. So if that's the case, then after, like you said, after Payet, I don't think you can get burnt much worse. So after that, I'm kind of quite cutthroat. I think if you don't want to play, don't play.
There was Payet. When you go back. There's no fan angrier or more dangerous than a scorned West Ham fan. I mean,
definitely.
Ask Paul Lintz, ask Jermaine Defoe. Ask. There were people who hate Scott Parker who like actually went down with us and played in the championship before he left. I know he left for Tottenham, but I mean, Scott Parker was 3 times a year. No, he was 3-time member of the year. I love Scott Parker. Sorry, I do. I just do.
Because Scotty Parker, I mean, did everything for us. I mean, and I can forgive him for that. But still, the season that he played for Tottenham, that hurt watching him pull on that shirt. That really freaking hurt.
I know it did. Really it did, but I didn't. I blamed the club as much as I blamed him for that. But I mean, West Ham fans do not forget a player who scorns us.
No, it's because it's something else. He's not just playing for a paycheck. He's playing for the right to have our love. He's playing for our heart. Yes. That's what it is. And he had the ability to be something special with us. He really had that ability because he had that fire, that burning desire that the West Ham players, that West Ham fans rather really love. I mean, all we want is our players to go out there and try for us.
Yes.
I mean, we don't ask for an awful lot other than just go out there and try for us. I mean, look at Di Canio. He wasn't the greatest bloody player in the world, but he went out there and put his heart on his sleeve and he tried for us. Every bloody time he pulled on that jersey, he tried and he bled claret and blue. The guy was just freaking brilliant. unbelievable. But Arnie had the ability to be something, to be almost a shadow of that.
Sure did.
And he blew it all with this.
He could have been Daniel, and he ended up as
this
Payet.
and that. That's what he blew it with.
He could have been Paolo, and he ended up as Dimitri Payet. He could have been a junior Paolo.
He didn't even end up as Dimitri Payet because he's not even as bloody good as him.
No, not even. No, not as good.
No, he's
on a lesser
He did
scale.
the same crap to us as he did to Stoke, and we're stupid for thinking he was going to do any different.
He thinks he's Zlatan, and he's not. So, yeah he walks around like he is, but that's it. Anyway, that said, we are out of time. But Wayne, thank you so much for helping me and Lee interview this nice young lady out of London, out of Watford, actually. But
it's almost
England. Sorry.
It's just a long way off, yeah.
Yeah, but our way. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, Holly, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
It's great to be on, and let me know if I can be on again and anytime soon.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. You will. Absolutely.
Holly, thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you, guys. Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.
Thanks, Wayne.